Okay, so, this is Lena. She's 28, and recently her family kinda expected her to just give up a luxury vacation she paid for. Yeah, literally paid for, so her sister's new boyfriend could take her spot. I mean, imagine planning everything, spending your own money, and then being told, sorry, you're not the priority. It's frustrating, right? But here's the thing. Lena's done shrinking herself for them, and what she decides to do next, well, let's just say it's not what anyone was expecting. You know, growing up for Lena was complicated, to say the least. From the outside, her family might have looked normal, even happy, but for her, it was this constant, low-grade frustration that built up over years. There was always this unspoken rule in the house. Chloe comes first. Chloe, her younger sister, the sun around which everything else orbited. And Lena, well, she was more like a satellite, useful, dependable, but never really the center of attention. Take her 10th birthday, for example. She had been dreaming of this one telescope for months. She even had a star chart on her wall and had been saving up her allowance, which, let's be honest, wasn't much for a kid. But she really wanted to contribute, to show that she was invested in this dream. Her parents promised to take care of it, and on the morning of her birthday, there it was, a massive box with her name on it. She was ecstatic, right? Pure joy, finally. Something for her. Something that made her feel seen. But then, that afternoon, Chloe fell off her bike. She scraped her knee. And oh boy, the drama that followed was immediate tears, a trip to the emergency room. All this. Lena knew it was minor. Just a cartoon-themed bandage would have sufficed. But for Chloe, it became an emergency. And her parents, of course, swooped in with this idea that maybe Chloe needed a special gift to cheer her up. And guess what? That gift was Lena's telescope, her 10th birthday present, reassigned, just like that. Her father explained quietly that it was a family gesture, that Lena should agree to keep the peace. And Lena, she nodded numbly, watching as her joy literally got packed up and moved into Chloe's room. That's the first real lesson she got, I guess. That her happiness was negotiable, a footnote in Chloe's story. Fast forward a few years to Lena's college graduation. Now, she was the first person in her immediate family to earn a university degree. And in a tough field like engineering, she worked her butt off, pulling all-nighters, skipping social events, really committing herself. She even graduated with honors, and she expected, well, a little recognition, right? Her parents promised a big party to celebrate. But then, a week before the event, Chloe announces she's been accepted into a 3-week pottery workshop out of state. Suddenly, Lena's graduation celebration gets canceled. Just like that. Why? Because her parents had to help Chloe pack and drive her to the workshop orientation. Her mother even pats her on the arm, all calm, saying, "You understand, Lena. It's a huge step for her. A party is just a party. But this is her future. Her 4 years of dedication thrown aside. And Lena, she ended up celebrating with a pizza and a couple of friends in her dorm, alone, while Chloe's hobby was treated like a Nobel Prize nomination. Lena's achievements were just, I don't know, background noise. It wasn't just the birthdays or graduation parties. The financial double standards were glaring too. Lena had to be fully independent from the moment she started her first internship. Her car. She paid for it, rent covered by her own paycheck. Tuition fees, also hers to handle, unless scholarships helped. Meanwhile, Chloe's rent, her car insurance, phone bill, endless art supplies, completely funded by their parents. If Chloe ran short on cash, they'd cover it without hesitation. If Lena mentioned a financial strain, she got lectures on budgeting and responsibility. And it wasn't that she wanted their money, really. It was the principle. They praised her independence but actively encouraged Chloe's dependence, celebrating her as a free spirit while labeling Lena as rigid or overly serious. Lena's frustration wasn't just about being overlooked. It was built on years of these little patterns stacking up. Every moment where her effort, her time, her resources were undervalued and redirected toward Chloe created this sense of being the perpetual support character in her own family story. Chloe was charming, whimsical, and capable of enchanting everyone: her parents, her friends, even strangers. Lena, on the other hand, was responsible, logical, a planner, a software engineer. Her world was built on logic and code, and while it was stable, it was never celebrated, never really explored by anyone else. She was the steady one, the one who got things done, the one her family leaned on but never really saw. It was exhausting, and it left her constantly navigating this invisible hierarchy where her needs were always secondary. And the emotional lessons started early. That telescope incident, that wasn't a one-off. It was part of a pattern that repeated itself over the years, like birthdays, achievements, even small wins if they could be redirected to Chloe. Lena grew up internalizing that her joy was negotiable, her presence optional, that she was meant to support the family, but not really be acknowledged as an equal. It shaped her in a very specific way: meticulous, dependable, careful. She learned to anticipate everyone else's needs, to step back, to be the bigger person, because if she didn't, the fallout was exhausting. It wasn't just about things being taken or celebrations canceled. It was the constant, subtle reinforcement of her place in the family. Lena's accomplishments were important in theory. They proved she could handle responsibility, but they didn't warrant attention or priority. Meanwhile, Chloe's whims, hobbies, or minor crises were treated like headline events. There was this unfair, almost invisible ledger in the household. Chloe's happiness weighed a ton. Lena's was paper thin. And it wasn't always cruel on purpose, at least not in a way that her parents admitted. It was normalized over decades. That normalization is what made it sting so much, because Lena knew, logically, that she wasn't being treated as lesser, she was being treated as invisible. Even as a teenager, Lena felt this weight. Her role was to manage expectations, keep things running smoothly, and absorb the emotional labor that her parents never noticed. She was a reliable sibling, the one who planned ahead, who kept her life together, who handled details without being asked. Chloe, in contrast, floated along, delightful, carefree, able to charm her way out of almost anything. The contrast wasn't subtle, it was stark. And for Lena, it wasn't about being jealous of Chloe's charm. It was about being frustrated that her own contributions, hard work, responsibility, initiative were consistently sidelined, invisible, undervalued. And these experiences weren't isolated incidents. They were cumulative. Each canceled party, each reassigned gift, each financial double standard added a layer of quiet resentment. But, crucially, it also taught Lena something about herself. She was capable, strong, and meticulous. She could handle responsibility, plan incredible experiences, and support her family, even when her own needs were ignored. It wasn't just about frustration, it was about awareness. She knew the rules of the family, the invisible ink constitution that everyone followed without saying it out loud. Chloe first, Lena, dependable but replaceable. Second, looking back, Lena could see the patterns clearly. The telescope, the graduation party, the financial expectations. It was all part of a design that positioned her as the background character in her own family's story. She was trained over years to take on the invisible labor, to give without acknowledgement, to be the bigger person even when it was crushing her. And while that shaped her frustration, it also shaped her resolve. She was responsible, capable, and she knew it. She had learned that her happiness was secondary, but that didn't mean she had to accept it forever. These early experiences, the small but repeated injustices, were laying the groundwork for a moment when she would finally decide not to shrink herself anymore. And it wasn't like Lena was bitter or ungrateful for her upbringing. She understood that Chloe's charm and carefree nature brought joy to the household, that her parents genuinely loved both daughters in their own ways. But it was exhausting, living with a constant imbalance, feeling like you were always giving, always responsible, always overlooked. The emotional toll wasn't about one specific event. It was about a lifetime of tiny cuts that compounded. Teaching Lena that her presence was optional, her needs negotiable, it shaped her personality, her career choices, her approach to life, even her ability to plan and execute incredible experiences without recognition. Through all of this, Lena carried a quiet, simmering frustration, a sense that no matter how much she did, it would never truly be enough. The telescope, the graduation party, even everyday chores, small victories or joys could be redirected, reassigned, ignored. She learned to anticipate this, to manage expectations, to put on a brave face and move forward. But beneath it all was this enduring, growing awareness one day. She wouldn't just let it slide. One day, she would stop being invisible, and the world, or at least her family, would have to acknowledge her, whether they liked it or not. And so, Lena's early experiences weren't just stories of unfairness, they were lessons in resilience. They taught her how to navigate complex emotional dynamics, how to balance responsibility with personal desire, how to survive in a household that prized charm and whimsy over diligence and stability. But they also planted the seeds for her eventual breaking point. A point where she would recognize that being reliable and responsible didn't have to come at the cost of being seen, of being valued, of being part of her own family's story. That, in fact, her reliability gave her power she had never exercised until much later in life. When Lena reflects on her childhood, she doesn't just see the moments of unfairness. She sees the contrasts, the repeated lessons in patience and endurance, the shaping of her identity as someone who gives more than she receives. She sees the foundation for the frustration that would one day fuel her decisions. Each reassigned birthday present, each canceled celebration, each financial double standard wasn't just a minor disappointment. It was a brick in the wall that would eventually make her stand taller, demand respect, and refuse to be sidelined ever again. In essence, Lena's upbringing was a balancing act she never agreed to perform. She was expected to be the responsible, stable, invisible sibling, while Chloe floated in the spotlight, celebrated for charm and whimsy. Lena learned early that her joy was flexible, her recognition conditional, and her needs negotiable. And while it built a frustration that lingered for decades, it also gave her the tools she would eventually use to assert herself in ways she had never imagined. Finally taking control of her story, her experiences, and her worth. The way money worked in Lena's family wasn't just about dollars and cents. It was about roles, expectations, and this unspoken hierarchy that had been baked in since forever. Lena, from the moment she started her first internship, had to be completely independent. Her car paid for by her, rent covered by her own paycheck, tuition fees. She handled them. And yeah, she managed, she budgeted, she sacrificed, she worked herself into exhaustion sometimes. And, of course, she got it done. But then there was Chloe. Her sister Chloe's life looked like a constant safety net had been thrown under her. Rent covered, car insurance covered, phone, art supplies, all that completely taken care of. If Chloe ran out of cash, the parents just dipped into their savings. No stress, no lectures, no fuss. Lena, meanwhile, even if she hinted at struggling, got a lecture on budgeting and responsibility, it's like they were teaching her, gently, but firmly, you are the adult here. You're the responsible one. You handle it all, and we celebrate your independence by expecting it. And yeah, Lena didn't resent being responsible. She liked order, structure, and logic. That part was fine. But the unfairness of it, the double standard, that's where it built up. It wasn't just practical. Every time Lena handled her own finances and her own life, it was a reinforcement of her role. She was the backbone, the steady one, the reliable one. Chloe was the free spirit, the charming, unpredictable, spontaneous one, and the family treated that as delightful, a lifestyle to admire, even encourage. And Lena, she was the one everyone leaned on, while her life and needs were secondary. It's subtle at first. Little things, but over years, that subtlety grows into a persistent weight. Big moments were no different. Lena's achievements, her degree, her career milestones, they were expected. Of course, she'd pull all-nighters. Of course, she'd graduate with honors. That was just Lena being Lena. But Chloe's small successes, like getting into a workshop or finishing a little project, were celebrated like they were monumental. The difference wasn't just attention, it was resources. Lena had to work, scrape, plan. Chloe got support handed to her. And over time, that creates this tension. It's not just jealousy, it's frustration. It's this constant whisper in your mind, your work is invisible, your contribution is assumed, your sacrifice is normalized. But their choices, their whims, their small achievements, they're a big deal, they're a spectacle, and it really adds up. The money, the support, it's a tangible reminder of who gets to be cared for and who has to provide the care. Chloe's free-spirited lifestyle, fully supported by their parents, was always visible. Lena's independence was invisible because it was expected. That dynamic, repeated again and again, quietly teaches you your place. And Lena noticed. Oh, she noticed. Every little accommodation for Chloe was another reminder you are reliable, you are expected, you are secondary. And as anyone would, over time, Lena started to feel that simmering resentment. It wasn't instant or dramatic, it was subtle, a slow burn, a reminder that no matter how much she gave, it was invisible, no recognition, no celebration, just expectations. And every time she had to cover herself, pay her way, or sacrifice, it reinforced a truth she couldn't ignore. She was the responsible one, and Chloe was the one allowed to float. It shaped her. Being the responsible one wasn't just a role, it became her identity in the family. She budgeted meticulously, planned ahead, anticipated problems before anyone else saw them, handled crises with calm precision. And yeah, that's admirable. But the flip side, every time she did this, it was just another reminder that she was expected to do it, and her own desires and comforts were optional. She learned to keep it quiet, to manage without fuss, because any display of frustration was interpreted as overreacting, being too sensitive, or, ironically, being dramatic. And the build-up to the confrontation we're talking about later. That simmering frustration, the awareness of these inequities, the repeated lessons about what she was valued for and what she was not. It all fed into that. Lena realized that, okay, she could keep doing this, being invisible while her sister got support and celebration, or she could finally assert her own agency. That pattern, repeated for years, reinforced both her patience and her awareness. It taught her the stakes, the boundaries, and ultimately, the power she held. Money in this family wasn't just money, it was control, leverage, and a mirror of who was allowed to be supported versus who was expected to provide the support. And Lena, finally, understood that if she didn't take control of her own story, no one else would. It was one of those dreary Tuesday afternoons at work. The kind where you're staring at a screen, trying to debug this gnarly piece of code, and your eyes are starting to blur from all the lines of text. And then my phone buzzed. It was a picture from my mom, a selfie. All smiles, my parents, Chloe, and Kevin at some local fall festival. The caption read, "Wish you were here." And, well, yeah, it stung. Not in a dramatic way, just that familiar little ache like, I wasn't part of the picture. I wasn't just absent. I wasn't essential. And that hit me hard. So, that evening, I went down a rabbit hole of travel websites. I wasn't just looking for a vacation. No. I needed an opportunity. Something that would make them notice me. Something that would make my presence unavoidable. I wanted to create an experience so unique, so perfect, that it would be impossible for them to sideline me. I wanted to be the architect of a memory that included me finally. That's when I found it. The Serenity Peak cabin. And wow. It wasn't just a cabin. It was like a dream someone built for a magazine, perched on a mountainside. The panoramic windows overlooking a snow-dusted valley. It felt like you could see the world from a postcard. The stone fireplace practically invited you to curl up with a mug of cocoa. And the hot tub on the deck, I mean. Come on, who doesn't dream of that? The kitchen was gourmet, like top of the line everything, and there were private ski trails. I could practically hear the crunch of the snow under my boots. I sat there, scrolling through the photos, heart racing, thinking, okay, yes, this is it. This is the chance to create a week that's ours. That's special. And yeah, it was expensive. More than just a generous gift, it was a statement. My life as a software engineer had allowed me some discretionary spending, usually investments or home improvements. But this was an investment in my family, in us, in me finally being part of the narrative, not just a footnote. I spent the next hour with my budget spreadsheets open. I double-checked every number, made sure it could work, and then, with a deep breath, I clicked book now. The confirmation email hit my inbox, and honestly, it felt like a jolt of pure hope. My heart was racing. Finally, a chance to shift the dynamic, to be seen, to be part of something, not just the person making it all possible behind the scenes. Next step, presenting the gift. I couldn't just send a text or an email. This needed ceremony. I printed out a glossy brochure I made myself, with high-quality photos of the cabin and a detailed itinerary. I even included the little touches, suggested hikes, ski schedules, and cozy evening plans. I wanted this to be tactile, to show I'd thought of every detail. I invited my parents and Chloe over for dinner, intentionally not mentioning Kevin. This was about our core family, and I wanted the focus to be on that. When I handed over the brochure, the reactions were everything I had hoped for. My mom's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide, a little gasp escaping. My dad shook his head, muttering, "Lena, you shouldn't have... This is incredible." And Chloe, she squealed, grabbed my arm, and started jumping up and down. "A whole week in a place like this, Lena. You're the best sister ever." For a fleeting moment, I felt it, the warmth, the attention, the sense that I was the center of their positive energy. It was intoxicating, honestly. We spent the rest of the evening poring over every detail. I told them I'd handled the cabin, the rental of a large SUV to handle the mountain roads, even prepaid ski passes for all of us. "All you have to do is pack your warmest clothes and be ready to relax," I said, trying to beam my excitement without sounding desperate. There was no mention of Kevin, and for a second, I allowed myself to believe that they understood the spirit of the gift. This was for the four of us, a return to our roots. The weeks leading up to the trip felt different. My mom called, just to chat, to gush about how excited she was. My dad sent me links to nearby hiking trails. Chloe texted me pictures of ski outfits she was thinking of buying. And here's the weird part. Yes, I felt cautious optimism because maybe, just maybe, this would reset things. I allowed myself to daydream about the trip, sitting by the fire, playing board games, cooking a big meal in that gourmet kitchen, laughing as my dad tried skiing for the first time in 20 years. These were the simple, wholesome moments I craved. The moments that always seemed to happen when I wasn't around. I threw myself into the final preparations like it was a full-time job. I created a shared digital itinerary, complete with confirmation numbers, timelines, and maps. The SUV, I booked a model big enough for all four of us and our luggage, under my name. I noted the tiny detail in the cabin policy that the primary guest, whose name and credit card were on the reservation, had to be present for check-in. Small administrative detail, barely a blip at the time, but still, it mattered. And then, of course, I curated a playlist classic rock for my dad, pop for my mom for the drive up. Every little thing, every click, every decision was a brick in the foundation of the perfect family memory I was so desperate to build. But then came a subtle red flag. A week before we were set to leave, Chloe called, all chirpy. Hey, so excited for next week. Quick question. What's the food situation? Kevin's a vegetarian, so I was just thinking about what we'd need to get for him. I froze, hand tightening on my phone. For him, I asked carefully. I thought this was just for the four of us. A slight pause. Oh, well, yeah, of course, she said, voice a little too bright. I just meant for when we get back. He's going to be so bored without me for a whole week. You know, she laughed it off. And I, wanting to believe her, let it slide. But yeah, it was a tiny crack in the perfect facade, a red flag. And here's the thing, I papered over it with my own hope. I told myself I was being paranoid. They wouldn't. Not with a gift this big, this personal. They just wouldn't. The night before departure, my mom sent a text to the family group chat. Can't wait for our family adventure tomorrow. So proud of you for making this happen. Lena. I read it 3 times, feeling that surge of validation, the sense that, okay, maybe it's working. Maybe my plan is actually going to change things. I packed my suitcase, laying out my warmest sweater, my carefully chosen gear, feeling a kind of nervous excitement I hadn't felt in years. I fell asleep that night with a genuine, unforced smile on my face, blissfully unaware that the dream I had so carefully constructed was about to face some serious turbulence. And yet, despite the subtle unease around Kevin, despite the little jitters, I clung to the hope that this week, this gift, this carefully orchestrated family escape would finally give me a place in the picture, that maybe for once I would be central, not peripheral, that maybe the countless small sacrifices, the years of patience, the quiet reliability could be rewarded with just 1 week of recognition, warmth, and family joy. And honestly, that anticipation, that fragile hope, was almost as luxurious as the cabin itself. The morning air was crisp and bright, the kind of perfect autumn day that somehow felt like a promise. I woke up early, buzzing with a mix of excitement and nerves. I double-checked my suitcase, made sure the folder with all the reservation printouts was tucked safely under my arm, and headed downstairs. My plan was simple. Meet at my parents' house at 9, load up the rental SUV I was picking up on the way, and finally start the trip I had meticulously planned. I walked into their living room, smiling, trying to radiate the happy, expectant energy I felt. And then, the smile faltered. It died on my lips. The scene in front of me wasn't at all what I had imagined. My mom, Susan, was nervously rearranging coasters on the coffee table. My dad, Mark, was staring out the window as if the mailman's movements were far more interesting than anything else. Chloe sat on the sofa, fiddling with her hands, avoiding my gaze, and next to her, with his arm casually draped over her shoulder, was Kevin. His duffel bag was by the door, right next to hers. A cold, heavy dread settled in my stomach. It was suffocating, like the air had thickened. "Hey," I said, my voice sounding louder than I intended, almost sharp in the quiet room. "I'm here. I was just about to go pick up the car." My dad turned slowly from the window, his expression carefully neutral. "Morning, Lena. Actually, it was about that. We need to have a little chat." My mom wrung her hands, giving that nervous, conciliatory smile that always meant trouble. "Now, don't get upset, honey," she started. That classic opening line that was meant to soften the blow but never did. And right then, I knew. I felt like I was watching a car crash in slow motion, strapped into the front seat, unable to do anything but watch it unfold. There's just been a tiny little change of plans, my mom continued, her voice faltering a little. I looked from her anxious face to my dad's stoicism, then to Chloe's deliberate avoidance of my eyes. It was clear. I already knew what was coming. Chloe's voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Kevin is going to come with us," she said, still avoiding me. "His band's gig got canceled and he's going to be all alone this week. I couldn't bear the thought of him being by himself." I stared at her, then at Kevin, who offered me this weak, placating smile that somehow made the betrayal feel sharper. My chest tightened. The air in the room felt suffocating, like it had solidified around me. I had spent weeks pouring money, energy, and care into planning this trip, all for it to be hijacked by a canceled gig and a sense of entitlement so thick you could cut it with a knife. I tried to ground myself. "The cabin only sleeps 4, I said flatly, almost repeating it like a mantra. It wasn't a question, it was a fact. A reality that I had painstakingly checked and double-checked during the booking process. A fact I had reiterated multiple times in my head as the planning continued. My mom stepped forward, trying to soothe me, like I was some startled animal. "We talked it over last night," she said, her voice gentle, almost pleading. "And well, there's just no way Chloe can go without Kevin. They're inseparable." And there it was, the devastating truth hanging in the air. My dad cleared his throat, finally breaking his silence. "Lena, you're so independent. You've got your own place, your own life. You understand this is a big deal for Chloe and Kevin. We think it's important to support that." A wave of dizziness hit me. Did they even hear themselves? They were using my independence, the very thing they always praised, as a weapon against me, as if my strength and self-sufficiency justified erasing me from the equation. My throat felt tight. My eyes began to sting. "So, let me get this straight," I said, voice trembling despite my best effort to keep it steady. "I planned this entire trip. I paid for the entire trip. And you're telling me that I don't get to go, that I'm being kicked out for my sister's boyfriend of 6 months." Chloe's response was quick, sharp, defensive. "Don't be so dramatic, Lena. It's not like that. We just swap weeks if we could. But the reservation is non-refundable. You're making this a much bigger deal than it needs to be. We'll bring you back a souvenir." A souvenir. The words felt like a slap. They were literally going to bring me back a cheap keychain or snow globe from a vacation I had funded entirely. A vacation they had stolen. I couldn't even process the audacity of it. This wasn't an oversight, it was deliberate. They had weighed the options, considered the consequences, and concluded I was expendable. My presence, my feelings, my investment, all of it didn't matter as much as Chloe's desire not to be separated from her boyfriend. "I am the one who paid for it," I repeated, tasting the words like ash in my mouth. Every carefully planned, meticulously prepared detail, every dollar spent, had been used against me. My name was on the car. My name was on the cabin. My efforts, my generosity, my emotional labor, they didn't see it as a gift. They saw it as a resource to be reassigned at will. My dad's voice carried that condescending calm I'd known for years. "Think of it as your gift to Chloe and Kevin. a way to show your support for her happiness. We'll pay you back for your spot when we can. My spot. They had quantified me, my value, reduced to a monetary placeholder. That's when the hurt shifted into something colder, something harder, clarifying anger. Thousands of little cuts from childhood, the telescope on my 10th birthday. My graduation party canceled. The financial disparities all coalesced into a single, gaping wound. This wasn't carelessness, it was cruelty. I looked at their faces. My mother, desperate for peace, her hands wringing. My father, hiding behind a wall of twisted logic. Chloe, radiating entitlement so profound it was almost impressive. And Kevin, the catalyst, sitting there, uncomfortable, but doing nothing to intervene. I felt a shudder run through me. The tears that had threatened to fall receded, replaced by a sharp, icy resolve. I could scream, I could cry, I could plead. I had done all of those things before, and what had it ever changed? Nothing. Always labeled difficult, too sensitive, dramatic. Not this time. This time, I would act, but on my own terms. I gave them a single tight nod. Fine, I said. The word was small, sharp, like a shard of glass. A visible wave of relief washed over them. My mom's smile was too bright. Oh, thank you, Lena. I knew you'd understand. You've always been the bigger person. We'll have a great time. Chloe pulled out her phone, probably to post a picture of their packed bags. We'll send you lots of pictures. I didn't respond. I turned and walked to the front door, picked up my suitcase and stepped into the bright morning sun, closing the door quietly behind me. Their relief was palpable, like they had won, like I was just slinking away to nurse my hurt feelings in peace. But they had no idea what was coming. I managed to get into my car and shut the door. The betrayal hit like a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. All the happy daydreams I had nurtured, the laughter, the fireside chats, the sense of belonging crumbled into dust. They didn't just uninvite me, they discarded me. They saw my generosity as a transaction, a set of tickets they could reassign at will. A text from Chloe buzzed in my pocket. Can you send me the confirmation hash for the SUV rental? We're heading out soon. The sheer nerve of it sent another wave of anger through me. They were moving on, logistics and all, without a single glance backward. My hurt wasn't even a speed bump. It was just an administrative detail they expected me to handle. That's when the switch flipped. The image of my mom, dad, and Kevin piling into the cramped sedan flashed through my mind. Smug, self-satisfied, heading off to enjoy a luxury vacation funded entirely by the daughter they just kicked to the curb. And in that moment, I realized my training was officially over. I put the car in drive, but I didn't go home. I drove to a nearby park, pulled into a quiet spot overlooking a duck pond, and turned off the engine. The anger had cooled, shifted from chaotic to focused. It was resolve. I took out my phone, hands steady, and dealt with the administrative details. One by one, the rental SUV, the ski passes, the cabin. It wasn't about revenge. It was about consequences. They had removed me from the equation, so I was removing myself entirely. Calls were made, confirmations sent, the entire meticulously planned, expensive trip dismantled in under 15 minutes. No explosions, no yelling, just calm, deliberate clicks. Loss, sadness, and a surge of power all mixed into a strange cocktail. I had lost money, sure, but I had taken my power back. I had drawn a line in solid rock, leaning back, watching ducks glide across the pond. I felt something I hadn't in years, a sense of peace. The storm would come, but for now, there was calm. I had done something for myself. Final and decisive, my apartment later that day was a sanctuary, a place where I wasn't an afterthought or a doormat. Tea, a blanket, a movie I'd been wanting to watch. I was starting a new chapter on my terms, and nothing, not even their entitlement, could take that away from me. After leaving my parents' house, I sat in the car for a moment, just breathing, trying to let the anger settle into something more manageable. My hands were shaking slightly at first, but there was a strange calm beneath it all. I realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't going to react on their terms. I wasn't going to cry, plead, or try to reason with their entitlement. This time, I was going to take control. I took a deep breath and started with the SUV rental. I pulled up the confirmation email and dialed the number for Prestige Auto Rentals. A cheerful voice answered. "Thank you for calling Prestige Auto Rentals. How can I help you today?" I forced my voice to be calm, steady, even. "Hello? I need to cancel a reservation for today. The last name is Lena, and the confirmation number is..." I read it off clearly. There was a slight pause. Then the agent responded, "Okay, ma'am, I have that reservation here. It's a premium SUV pickup at 10 a.m. Are you sure you want to cancel?" "Yes, my plans have changed," I said, deliberately neutral, almost detached. No explanation, no apology, just the facts. "All right, no problem," the agent said. "Since you're canceling on the same day, there's a small cancellation fee, but the rest of the prepayment will be refunded to your card on file." "That's fine. Thank you," I said, and hung up. I leaned back in the seat, taking a moment to feel the weight of the first action I'd taken. It was a small step, but it already felt like reclaiming a little piece of myself. I imagined them arriving at the counter, confidently expecting the car to be waiting, only to be met with confusion. That thought made me grin, a slow, grim smile that felt more like justice than malice. It wasn't about revenge, really, not at all. It was about consequences. They had made a choice, and I was just letting that choice land where it belonged. Next, I moved on to the ski passes, thankfully. This was easier, done entirely through the resort's online portal. I logged in, found the order for the 4 all-access passes, and clicked the request refund button. A confirmation popped up immediately. "Your refund has been processed and will appear on your statement in 5 to 7 business days." Click done. Another piece of the puzzle dismantled. I leaned back, letting a slow exhale release the tension in my chest. The act of taking control, one step at a time, had a calming, almost hypnotic effect. I wasn't hurt anymore, not in the same frantic, suffocating way. I was focused, deliberate, empowered. Finally. There was the crown jewel, the Serenity Peak cabin, the heart of the trip, the dream, the thing that had been my beacon for weeks, my investment in our family and in my own sense of belonging. I stared at the confirmation email for a long moment, feeling a pang of sadness, but it quickly shifted into resolve. I picked up the phone and dialed the cabin management company. A warm, professional voice answered. "Good morning, Mountain Luxury Retreats." "Good morning," I said, my voice calm. Even. "I have a reservation checking in today under the name Lena, and I need to make a change." "Of course." Let me pull that up. Yes, I see it here. Serenity Peak cabin for 7 nights. What sort of change did you need? Miss Lena, I swallowed, then said firmly, I need to cancel the reservation. There was a pause. Then, oh, I see. I'm sorry to hear that. I must inform you that as per our booking policy, cancellations within 14 days of check-in are non-refundable. You would be forfeiting the entire amount paid. I'd known this. I had read the fine print, analyzed it, accepted it, but somehow, hearing it aloud made the cost seem trivial compared to the cost of letting them walk all over me one more time. The money I had spent, the weeks of emotional labor, the planning, the meticulous attention to detail, it didn't matter to them. It never had. This cancellation wasn't about loss. It was about reclaiming my power, about asserting that I would not be treated as a doormat, a disposable source of pleasure or convenience. I understand, I said slowly, letting the words land. I still need to cancel. Okay, ma'am. I just need to remind you one more time. No refund will be issued. I understand completely. I said, my voice firm. Please proceed with the cancellation. Click. Done. Just like that. The Serenity Peak cabin, the very centerpiece of their planned holiday. The thing that had made their entitlement seem effortless was dismantled. I could feel the quiet, almost imperceptible power settle over me like a warm blanket. This was not chaos. This was agency. This was calm control, and it felt astonishing. One last check. I asked a small, practical question. Your policy states the primary guest must be present for check-in with the credit card used for booking. Correct. Yes, that's correct. A strict security policy to prevent fraud. The person whose name is on the reservation must be present. No exceptions. Thank you. I said, that was it. That small detail meant that even if I hadn't done anything, their attempt to exploit my generosity would have failed. The legal and logistical weight of my name alone would have barred them from entering. That thought alone, the knowledge that I had created a boundary so concrete it couldn't be bypassed, gave me a quiet, deep satisfaction. I hung up, leaned back, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was done. Every carefully planned, meticulously prepared element of the trip, the SUV, the ski passes, the cabin was gone, removed from their control and reassigned to the natural consequence of their choices. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't even called them to berate them or explain my actions. The power had shifted without fanfare, without drama, just quiet, deliberate steps taken by me. I let myself sit for a moment, feeling the strange cocktail of emotions swirling inside loss. Yes, a flicker of sadness, but also empowerment, relief, satisfaction. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about accountability. It was about showing, without a word, that their actions had consequences, that my presence was not optional, and that I wasn't going to silently bear the cost of their entitlement anymore. I watched the ducks glide across the pond outside the car window. The world felt still, almost suspended in this moment of quiet triumph. For the first time all day, I felt like I had solid ground under my feet. I hadn't just canceled a trip. I had reclaimed my agency, drawn a clear line between my life and their expectations. My anger had transformed from chaotic, hot, uncontrollable bursts into a focused, cold clarity. I could feel the calm power radiating through me. The storm was coming. I knew There would be calls, texts, maybe shouting, maybe tears. But for now, in this moment, there was only the profound and satisfying calm that comes from knowing you've done exactly what you needed to do. The deliberate steps, the careful actions, the quiet decisiveness, it was liberating. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not by them, but by myself. And that was enough. The realization settled in. I had acted on my terms, taken responsibility for myself, and created boundaries that even my family couldn't cross. The act of canceling wasn't just administrative, it was symbolic. It was a demonstration that I wasn't their convenience, their fixer, their backup plan. It was proof that I could act decisively and calmly, even when the stakes felt enormous. It was about setting the precedent for the future, about saying, without words, that I mattered. I started the car, letting the engine idle as I took another deep breath. The relief was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there, solid and satisfying. This quiet, deliberate reclamation of control had changed the tone of the entire day. The power dynamic had shifted, and it didn't rely on drama, confrontation, or anger. It relied on action, careful thought, and the unwavering knowledge of my own value. Every click, every call, every form submitted felt like a small victory, a step away from a lifetime of being overlooked and undervalued. It was a strange, potent mixture of grief and satisfaction, sadness and empowerment. But more than anything, it felt like freedom, the kind of freedom that comes not from shouting or fighting, but from finally asserting your own agency and refusing to let others dictate your worth. I rested my hands on the steering wheel and closed my eyes for a moment, letting the weight of the day settle in a new, manageable way. The trip was gone. The money spent was gone. But the control, the clarity, the understanding of my own boundaries and my own worth that was irrevocable. And in that, I found a calm strength I hadn't known I possessed until that very morning. After taking those first deliberate steps to cancel everything, I knew the fallout was coming. I just didn't expect it to hit so fast. My phone buzzed almost immediately. The first text was from my dad, Lena. Hey, at Prestige. They're saying the reservation was canceled. Some mix-up. Can you call them? I stared at it for a moment, my chest tightening. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a deep breath and pictured exactly what was happening at that rental counter, the confused faces, the frantic scrambling, and honestly, it made a small part of me smirk. Minutes later, another buzz, this time from my mom. Mom, Lena, call your father. The man at the counter is being very unhelpful, says you canceled the car. Please fix this. Please fix this. My eyes narrowed. Fix this, I whispered to myself. My hand hovered over the phone, then moved deliberately to silent mode. For a moment, I just let the silence settle in, and it felt incredible, sweet, rare. For decades, my life had been a series of little nudges, hints, expectations, all background noise I had learned to anticipate, and now, suddenly, none of it mattered. The texts kept coming, rapid fire. Chloe, frantic Lena, what did you do? We can't get the SUV. Now we have to take our car and it's going to be super cramped with all our stuff. And Kevin's guitar. This is so annoying. Call me. Then more from my dad. Lena, I am not playing games. Your sister is upset. Answer your phone. Mom, pleading honey, please. We're going to be late. Just tell us what happened. And yet, I didn't answer. I let the constant buzzing wash over me, realizing that for the first time in my life, the chaos, the urgency, the tension, it wasn't mine to carry. I had set a boundary, and now it was theirs to navigate. And weirdly, it gave me this calm sense of power I hadn't felt before. By this point, I made a decision block them, one by one. Dad, Mom, Chloe, and even Kevin. Each name disappeared from my contact list, and the notifications stopped. The quiet that followed was so sharp, so intense, it almost startled me. For 2 full days, I lived in a bubble of blissful silence. It felt like I had closed the door on a hurricane. The constant pressure, the subtle judgments, the background hum of expectation, all of it had been stripped away. Suddenly, I had this enormous mental space that I hadn't realized I'd been starving for my whole life. In that silence, I started to breathe again. Slowly. I worked from home. Yes, but differently, lighter, freer. I made time for myself, ordered my favorite food without guilt, and reconnected with friends I'd been neglecting. Little things like watering my plants, doing laundry, even making a cup of tea felt different, like I was performing actions for me, not to keep the family happy or avoid their disappointment. And the best part, there was no one there to criticize, judge, or expect something in return. But, of course, my mind was still processing everything. I thought about the patterns, the little injustices, and the bigger ones. The telescope on my 10th birthday, the graduation party canceled for a pottery workshop, the endless comparisons. It all flashed in my head like a film reel. And yet, instead of the usual ache or guilt, there was a growing sense of validation. Because now, the chaos was theirs. The problem they had created was theirs to deal with. And somehow, seeing that, I felt lighter. I realized that I had been conditioned to solve problems that were never mine to fix. And now, for the first time, I wasn't doing it. Then, about a month later, a cousin called me, a voice I hadn't heard in years, hesitant but caring. "Hey, Lena. Just checking in. Things sound intense over there." I let out a dry chuckle, almost bitterly amused. "You could say that?" I replied. She hesitated, then added, "Yeah. My mom said they're telling everyone you had a massive, unprovoked meltdown and sabotaged the family vacation because of jealousy over Chloe and Kevin." I paused. I could feel the old anger, the familiar sting, rising again. But then she said something that caught me off guard. "Don't worry, none of us are buying it. We've all seen the Chloe show for years. Honestly, most of the family is secretly giving you a standing ovation." I let that sink in. All these months of frustration, hurt, anger, feeling unseen, it had been real. And unexpectedly, it was witnessed and understood by others. My dad's voice echoed in my head. Good for her. The validation didn't erase the pain, but it reframed it. Suddenly, my actions weren't reckless or selfish. They were measured, deliberate, and entirely justified. And even more, the financial and logistical consequences that my family was facing now had a tangible weight. They couldn't simply dismiss the chaos. It was real, visible, undeniable. A few weeks later, on a rainy Saturday, I found myself cleaning out a closet. I stumbled upon an old photo album, dusty and slightly forgotten. I flipped through it, and with each page, I felt a strange mix of nostalgia and clarity. There I was at 7, standing slightly apart while my parents fussed over a 2-year-old Chloe. There I was at 16, cast on my arm, watching Chloe blow out candles on her birthday cake. The pattern repeated in photo after photo. It was subtle, almost invisible until you looked closely. But it was there. I had lived it. But now, for the first time, I could see it. I stopped at a photo from a few years ago Christmas morning. My parents were smiling politely at the camera, holding the coffee machine I'd gifted them. Next to them, Chloe was holding up her designer handbag, beaming genuinely ecstatic. And suddenly, I felt a pang not for myself, but for them. For the family that could have been, if their love and attention hadn't been so skewed. I felt sorry for my parents, blinded by favoritism. I felt a flicker of pity for Chloe, coddled and unaccountable, oblivious to the consequences of her privilege. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt done. It wasn't my job to fix them, to make them see, or to repair a broken pattern. My job was to save myself. I closed the album gently, feeling the weight of it in my hands. I didn't need their validation anymore. The ache to be seen, to be appreciated by them, had dissipated. It was a strange, liberating sensation. For years, I had run mental programs in the background, anticipating needs, managing expectations, swallowing disappointment, and now I had finally shut them all down. That mental energy, once consumed by my family's dynamics, was mine again. I could redirect it, pour it into myself, my life, my happiness. I started small. I tackled challenging projects at work I'd previously avoided, fearing interference or family demands. I explored hiking trails nearby, reconnected with friends who had slowly drifted away, spent time on hobbies I had put aside, and I began to realize that my life, my energy, my time, it belonged to me. I was making choices for myself, not to keep a family structure intact that had never truly valued me. In the quiet, I began to reflect on the story I'd been living. The pattern of being the irresponsible, reliable background character, contrasted with Chloe's charming, carefree spotlight, the validation from my cousin, the perspective from old photos, and the space I'd created by setting boundaries, all combined to form a sense of clarity I hadn't had before. The chaos they expected me to manage, the constant adjustments, the self-sacrifice, it was no longer mine to bear. And that was powerful. I thought about the trips, the vacations, the gifts, the birthday presents, the graduation celebrations, all the moments where my presence, effort, and care had been treated as secondary. And I realized that by stepping back, by blocking their calls and letting the consequences fall where they were due, I had created the ultimate lesson, not just for them, but for myself. I had affirmed my worth, my boundaries, my right to exist fully and unapologetically in my own life. And so, I sat there in my apartment, the silence around me deep and satisfying, feeling a profound peace that had eluded me for decades. The storm outside, the frantic messages, the desperate phone calls, they all existed without my participation. I could watch it, acknowledge it, but not absorb it. It was theirs, and for the first time, I didn't have to carry it. I didn't have to fix it. I didn't have to be the hero, the peacekeeper, the fixer. I was simply me, and that, in itself, was enough. In the end, Lena discovered something huge. Her worth isn't measured by how much she gives or how her family treats her. She's planning her own solo trip next spring, fully in her name, fully for herself. And that's kind of liberating, right? The lesson. Boundaries matter, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up for yourself. So, maybe take a moment to think about your own boundaries. Or just share this story with someone who might need a reminder that self respect is non negotiable.